And we are back. Peace, love, and blessings, everyone. Welcome back to your Blackest STEM podcast, the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent in Black culture, where we do our best to highlight the best and brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Tonight's episode is Exercise as a Science Part 2 with human movement scientist, Mr. Brother Ernest Hudson Jr. Tune in for more of this dynamic episode after this, family.
You believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy.
Yes, sir. Just like you said, on the STEM files, we are striving to teach friends, family, loved ones heavy science. Before we go any further, family, we are the STEM files live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tariq Cardiac, your brilliant engineer. Follow us at the STEM files on Instagram and Twitter. That's at the STEM files on Instagram, Twitter, and now TikTok. Also, we are live on Facebook and YouTube at the STEM Files, Facebook and YouTube at the STEM Files. Make sure to follow us on our platform, subscribe, share the content, share the content, share the content. We're going to get into some high level discussion today. As we continue, I always like to give a personal introduction so you know who you're talking to, right? My name is Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabril Engineer. I am a civilian mechanical engineer focusing on naval ship fluid systems with a background in material science and engineering, the study of the various material classes and how their different structures impact their properties and can be utilized in different applications. I am usually and always joined by my illustrious co-host Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac, a biomedical research scientist with a background in cardiovascular pathobiology, the study of how diseases form in the heart and blood vessels. I always mess with Tariq because I always get his intro right, and he be struggling with mine, but it's okay. We only known each other for like a long time, but it's all good. Family, as we always know, for those who are regular watchers and consumers of the content, we can go on and on. We can talk, but we do our best to not do too much talking because you're here for the talent. You are here for the voices that we bring on this platform to give you value from their experience, from their expertise, right? So without further ado, I want to introduce someone and present to all Mr. Ernest Hudson Jr., human movement scientist. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to engage you. For those who didn't know, unfortunately, I had to miss last time, so I'm excited for part two to get into more of what we're talking about then, as well as even more on top of that part one. So, Mr. Hudson, the floor is yours. Go ahead and introduce yourself and background, and we can get right into it.
Good. So once again, name is Ernest L. Hudson Jr., also known as Ernie Hudson Jr., and we'll get into that a little bit as we go on. But my background formally with science is human movement science. My master's is in exercise science. For a lot of years, I made a living as a personal trainer, decided to get certified, decided to really study the science behind it, and that pretty much changed my life. It's led to a lot of other things with that as a foundation. But I do look to that as the base of everything that I do, that science about the human body.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, one of the things that was very intriguing to me as I really was studying, what you presented us and the name human movement scientist, to me that goes so far beyond exercise, which is very important.
Sure.
When you start talking about human movement, that's everything we do from cracking our back to walking down the street to bending our wrists back and forth. Staying in that exercise vein, as one who's been on and off the exercise horse with my own personal goals, I'm always very intrigued at the mindset shift when it comes to working out. One of the things that's important, I think, to note, I tell people all the time, comparisons in and of themselves aren't good, right? If you must compare to the you of yesterday, that's your only competition.
Sure.
Can you speak to the science and the mindset set shift between those who go to the gym or have workout goals centered around losing weight and those who have workout goals centered around gaining mass or gaining size. That mental shift or that difference in approach
Sure.
to the science that is exercise.
Sure. I'll take it even a step further. Let's establish this idea that there is a continuum, right? So a continuum, we'll say that we have two polar ends and a whole line in between. At the most basic level, we have just mass consumerism that's put out about how to take care of your body.
Right.
It's mostly erroneous. It's mostly fad-based. It's
Right.
mostly someone just made up something. And so for those people who consume that information, they are doing everything under the sun,
Right.
thinking that it may or may not do something to their body. There's no real structure to it. The key element, they're not getting the results that they could predict. So when we say one of the hallmarks of science is, can I predictably replicate this experiment and get a similar result?
Right.
Those people can't do that. At the other end of the spectrum, we're looking at something that's more medical industry based. And so there's this idea that you have a patient in the world of exercise or the gym, we would say client. You look at how they present, you determine what the need is. The need is usually something that is abnormal from the norm. You are trained to identify those things, see those abnormalities, be able to come up with some sort of application of force on the body through exercise. So be it weightlifting, be it calisthenics, those are all forces that are being applied to that body to produce a specific result in that you're doing. And so you work that principle. So I think at the high end of it, those who are trying to do it more scientifically based, they are going into gyms with set programs. So think athletes. That's the easiest way to think of it. You have a professional athlete. They get paid millions of dollars. They must hit that ball, throw that ball, shoot that ball. And so therefore, we have to predictably say they can do this thing under these constraints. So that's the other extreme of it. And then there's everything in between, which is a whole lot.
Absolutely. I love how you broke that down. And one of the things I think we try to drive home, and me in particular is always on my mind, is where we think we have a niche with this, what our programming is, we don't always talk about traditional topics when it comes to STEM. It's not just about, oh, here's an engineer, let's talk about engineering. Here's this. We've talked about the science of mating. We've talked about, agriculture and getting into the scientific method where people may not think about it. We talk about exercise. Sure. We want people to understand that science is a way of life. It's a movement. It's not just a discipline. One goes to school and they study.
Sure.
And if you're a mailman, if you're, a business person, if you're, a content creator, now science no longer applies to your life. So I appreciate you really breaking that down systematically. People understand science can be a simple means to an end as it governs your environment and your surroundings. So that was very key. The Black Math Academy in the house, the Black Math Academy in the house. We are definitely going to be getting to your questions, bro. I love the support. Keep coming through. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you a question. I've always been, at my best, a big calisthenic workout person. And I've always felt that, you have people who work out to be seen. You have people who work out for functional strength. I've always been, more like a combination, but leaning toward the latter. Do you feel that people underestimate calisthenics as a base for strength and even the building of size? If so, why? And what are some key things for people to understand about calisthenics as an art form when it comes to exercise science?
Sure. So let's take the first part. Do people underestimate calisthenics, and why? The why is very simple from my vantage. My inside joke is Muscle and Fiction magazine, right? There's a magazine called Muscle and Fitness, right? I
Okay.
call it muscular fiction because the people in that magazine are often engaged in activities that enhance their physicality, right? Which isn't always working out. They're taking drugs or whatever it might be, right? Allegedly. I don't know for a fact, but allegedly. That being said, this is what's in the marketplace. So why aren't people doing more calisthenics? Well, because it's not in Muscle and Fiction magazine. It's not at your local newsstand. People aren't seeing this thing. Now with social media, we see groups like bartenders, bar masters, etc., the Highlanders. So now it's becoming more popular because of social media and other things. But just as a mass movement, bodybuilding and those things that are derived from bodybuilding are still the dominant forms of most people's perceptions of being healthy or being physical or some such thing. So I think that's a lot of the why. I think calisthenics are awesome simply because you don't need equipment to do it. Your body's the equipment. You can do it pretty much anywhere. The challenge is most people don't feel like moving their bodies, and so sometimes it's easier to move something else, which by default you move your body. So psychologically it's easier, but there's all kinds of incredible benefits from working the body out and doing the exercises and body weight squats and lunges and push-ups and that sort of thing. Mostly a lot of it, the joints, ligaments, and tendons, things that you can't really address in the same way from lifting weights. I like both. I've gotten great results from doing both. Just depends on the mood I'm in, but both of them have their advantages and disadvantages.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's get into some of these questions from the Black Math Academy. Definitely want to make sure we always engage our audience and top audience members at that. So let me see. This is a good question. I think they'll kind of open up the box. So he says, how far has science come to understand how exercise and the human body works? Now, this is a very broad and loaded question, but from your experience and in the vein that we're talking, what is your opinion on this?
So it's kind of twofold. On one hand, having gone to graduate school and done research, there seems to be this incredible understanding of the human body and what it does. But here's some of the reality of that. One of the basic theories about muscles, it's called sliding muscle filament theory. At this day and age, it's called theory. It has not been proven. It's a best guess. Seems to be this way 99% of the time, but at this point, it's still referred to as a theory. It lets me know that there's a lot that's still not understood. I'll give you two concrete examples. When I was in graduate school, I have a martial arts background. So I thought, hey, you know what? Let me do some studies on balance. And I'll look at martial arts and how maybe martial arts has been used to promote balance, particularly in seniors, because keeping balance for a senior can be a challenge. So I said, great, let me go look up all this research. I could find little to no research. And when I say little to no, I mean, like literally I found less than 10 peer-reviewed science studies that was dealing with this with martial arts and balance. I thought this was a no-brainer. I found 2 reputable studies out of the University of Shanghai that I used. That was it. So something as simple as, well, logically speaking, if a person does a martial arts kick, they're on one leg, surely this is promoting balance and stability. Surely somebody studied this and did some research. Couldn't find the research. So on one hand, it seems like science says a lot about the human body and what it does, but there's still a lot that's not understood solidly. The other thing I'll share with people is we talk about the muscles, the organs, the ligaments, the tendons, all these parts of the body. But the reality is if you took the skin off and looked at the muscles, ligaments, and tendons, it's really kind of hard to tell where one begins and one ends. It's kind of blends all together. So you begin to realize this is really just a language we've created to, one, be able to communicate, and 2, be able to manipulate the principles. But the reality is, if I say muscle, that's kind of vague, because where does the muscle begin and end? Where does the ligament begin and end, or the tendon begin and end? And so there's a lot still to be discovered about the body.
I love how you explain that. Language is a vehicle by which we traverse life, right? Whether it be, English, Spanish, Swahili, Arabic, French, Italian, etc., or it's biology, calculus, epidemiology, uh, chemistry, etc. We study, we research, we come up with theories, things are proven, we engage the scientific method to experiment and find out facts. But what's humbling, but also reassuring, is that we're still learning.
Yeah.
We can't know everything. We can do our best to help paint that picture and give us a strong foundation to launch from, to then understand our reality.
Yes. Yep.
So I love how you talked about things are still advancing and being understood. And
Sure.
This realm of endeavor isn't 100% set in stone. Like, things are constantly shifting and changing. So I really appreciate that. Let's get into another question. So this is interesting. So Black Math Academy says, are you familiar with the NBC Sports News Tonight report about proving Black athletes superior to white athletes? I've never heard of this, but I'm interested to see if this is something you've heard of.
I don't know that specific report, but I have come across a lot of things that speak to this general concept.
Okay. Do you have, and I guess follow-up question, do you have any personal thought processes or opinion on that? Again, this is just from a purely, right,
Sure.
If you've researched anything, if we come up with anything.
So
like
here's the challenge with this.
Athletes a broad term, right? So
cuts,
how do we?
Yeah. Well, it's broad, but the knife cuts both ways in this, because buried in this concept. So let's say already we got black and white. So we're looking at human beings, and we're looking at, well, what makes them different. And so now we have to kind of dig up the history of America in this conversation, because what's buried in this is to say, well, why would there be a difference between a black athlete and a white athlete? For the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to define a black athlete of somebody with an obvious melanin content that's identifiable by sight, right? So we're going to say they're of darker skin. Somebody white is somebody who looks like they don't have much melanin to speak of by sight. We know that if we were looking at DNA, all that goes out the window, but nonetheless, we'll take that. With that being said, we know that the history of America is that there were literally breeding farms in America for a couple of 100 years. And as a result, just like people breed pit bulls and other things, Africans in America were bred. And because we were bred, they were breeding for certain characteristics. Now, the question then becomes, is the effects of that so long term that today we are seeing people who are reflective of that? Perhaps, I don't know. I haven't seen enough research to say conclusively, but I definitely know that history is there and the possibility exists. Is it all a wash and absolutely not? I can't say that. I know that generationally things may not be the way you think they are. Just because you think it would happen a certain way doesn't mean it does. So, I remain on the fence because I don't have the hard evidence to make a direct tie. But is it possible? It most certainly is possible because of America's history.
Gotcha. And I appreciate that response. One of the things, we talk about some inherent differences, race to race, ethnicity to ethnicity, where if you the more you dig, you start to unveil certain things. There's a real reason, just from the eye test, right? You look at, track and field, you look at basketball, like the top athletes remain, black men, black women. And it's like, well, why is that? Then we talk about, you look at like sprinters, like since I've followed, and I'm not going to say I'm the biggest follower of track and field, so I've followed sprinters. Jamaica just seems to just be there.
Yeah.
Followed closely by the Black athletes of the United States.
Yeah.
Right? Then we look at basketball. I'm a big basketball fan. You know, now we've gotten to a more kind of Eurocentric type of way of playing, to where you have a lot of guys, the EuroLeague or whatever, international players who come in and are very skilled. But from an athletic perspective, I say that you still have the dominant, you know, player pool in the league to be, you know, Black
that
men,
raw physicality.
Right. So there's something to that. And the Black Man Academy, thank you for posting the report. I'm definitely interested in looking that up later. He said, I ran track. Every single person to break 10 seconds in a 100-meter dash have been Black. Hey, that's your experience, and I definitely feel like there's some data to that and reasoning to that. But thank you.
I'll share with him. I was a sprinter.
Okay.
So I ran under 11 seconds in the meters. So I was in the 10s.
Right.
Hey, it seems like there's a whole lot of fat behind it. But again, I don't have the scientific evidence.
Got you. So let's talk a bit more about human movement science, because I love that term. Outside of exercise, I guess, where have you seen, I guess, in your everyday life or even in research, like that title come to life? What have been some things you've learned about just human movement, from something as simple as maybe how we walk up the stairs, or, you know, there's things about, oh, well, we used to, or the right way for a human being to walk is toe then heel versus heel then toe. I've heard so many things like that. So kind of enlighten us on that front, outside of taking ourselves out of the exercise science.
Sure. So let me say this first off. The term, I didn't make that term up. I came in contact with the term through the National Academy of Sports Medicine when I was doing my training as a personal trainer. That was one of the first national certifications I had. A guy by the name of Michael Clark. He came up with it. He was a physical therapist. So the concepts that really kind of put that into motion was this idea that you didn't have to be an athlete to be able to take advantage of training paradigms, right? Previous to that, the research money goes into athletes. And so all the research had been done on athletes. But now people are saying, let's just look at the regular person, average, ordinary person. How do you carry a bag of groceries? How are you walking? How do you reach overhead? What's the science behind that? And in fact, it's pretty much the same science. The difference is the intensity is at lower levels, but nonetheless, the mechanics, a shoulder's a shoulder. A shoulder moves certain degrees of motion. The muscles are the same muscles. So it's really applicable to anybody at any time. For me personally, it became a breathing science or a living science when I began to understand it as a metaphor. For example, I'll cover this loosely, and if you want to go deeper into it, we can.
Okay.
There was a gentleman by the name of Hans Selye who had this thing called general adaptation syndrome, which means that the human body under stress will predictably have challenges, but if you keep applying that stress over time, it will get better and used to that stress and will start to perform better over time. However, if you keep applying the same stress over time, eventually the body will get so used to it that it could be detrimental or negative. And so an example of this would be someone who doesn't work out. The first time they work out, they get sore. It's detrimental. It hurts. Oh, my arms are too tight. But if you keep working out with the same weights, your arms will start to get stronger or bigger or more stable or whatever it happens to be. But if you stick with that same weight for too long, you can actually get repetitive use injuries from doing the same thing. So this is a general adaptation that the human body has. But then I started realizing that when people do any activity, they respond similar to doing that. If you have to start working the graveyard shift, when you first add that new stimulus, your body doesn't respond well to it. Oh man, I don't want to get up like this. This is hard. But then you get used to it over time because you're doing the same thing. But if you keep doing it even longer, pretty soon your body starts burning out on that, and you have to mix it up or do something different. So I started realizing that, wait a minute, this is an appropriate metaphor for human life, because human life is based on the body we live it in.
Yes.
So the way we
Yes.
process things, the way we understand things, it's limited by the human body. It makes a logical sense. And so I begin to see these elements in a broader sense, metaphorically, just as we approach ideas and other things, but looking at the body and then branching from there.
I hope y'all heard that. I hope y'all saw how he went from the specific discipline that he is trained in and applied that to everyday life. I had a consultation with a family. I'm a math tutor of several levels. And one of the things I was talking about is, as a tutor, my goal is to engage a mentor-mentee relationship and show how a strong mathematical understanding makes you successful in life. Sure. A lot of times children or people ask, well, where I'm going to use algebra or calculus. You may never use it as a discipline in your life specifically, but the critical thinking and problem solving, the ability to overcome difficulty from testing yourself against difficult curriculum and difficult topics will lend itself well to you doing that in your everyday life. One of the things that I've learned as a member of Nation of Islam, those who don't know mathematics will always be slaves to those who do. Period. That's just and mathematics being life principles, like the law of cause and effect, how life operates. If you don't have a strong understanding of how the world around you operates and how to tap into certain skill sets to get out what you need and vice versa and live interdependently with people, you'll always suffer. Not to say you won't go through trial and everything if you do understand that, but it's 100% that a weak understanding of mathematics will render you helpless typically to those who do. So thank you for the way you broke that down. I want to stay in that vein of the Nation of Islam. It's something that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave to us about exercise and talked about brisk walking as the best exercise holistically. As in your studies as a human movement scientist, exercise scientist, what has been your experience with things surrounding that phrasing? Is it something you agree with, disagree with? What have you found to support or disprove that in your opinion?
Sure. So there's a couple of thoughts I have. First off, and I just want to say this because I think it should be said. When we talk about many of the teachings of the Nation of Islam, and I'm not a member of the Nation of Islam, but I lived in Michigan as a child. We lived in Detroit, and I remember as a kid, we used to listen to the LP. That's how long ago this was. The LP of Message to the Black Man, right? And many of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke to, people have questioned and looked at and that sort of thing. But there are many principles that were espoused that are solid and hold true. So much so that I don't know of any organization in the history of the United States, certainly, that has been a benefit to the African-American community, African community, Black community, whatever you want to say, more so than the Nation of Islam, period. Point blank, period.
Yes, sir.
Having said that, when we look at exercise, a physician would tell you the best form of exercise to do is walking. Why? Because everybody needs to walk. Not just you have to walk to go to the bathroom. You need to walk. You are not mobile if you don't walk. Water is not active unless it's moving. When water becomes stagnant, it literally dies. That's what the human body is. Human body is mostly water. So for just basic heart health, the recommendation is that you're walking at least 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. So this is something that's basic and fundamental. Many people don't pay attention to it or get away from it. Sometimes sometimes a person who does not have credentials behind their name, they may say something. People go, I don't know what they're talking about. No, that's solid information. Brisk walking is an incredible activity. Most people just don't feel like doing it because of the constraints under which we live. It's cold outside, it's hot outside, the concrete don't feel good. But it's one of the best things that you could possibly do.
Yes, sir. And I really appreciate the objective opinion of the Nation of Islam. A lot of times we get, me and Brother Tariq, we're unapologetic. Everybody who's ever watched the show knows that we're proud FOI, and we don't hide that. My thing is, if I have to hide that, then I don't need to do this podcast. So, and what we always strive to do is show the universality of the teachings in who we bring on and being able to speak to it, not beat anybody over the head, but speak to the concretization of freedom, justice, and equality. So when you talked about that, I hope y'all are listening. First of all, I hope y'all are listening, because when it comes to exercise, it comes to movement, it doesn't take much to get started. I think that we talk about comparisons, right? Whether it's social media, siblings, people we see. We look at, he's 26, I'm 26. Wait a minute. He got 10 years of work behind him. You have none.
Yeah.
So you're both 26, but he's 10 years old in the game. You're 0.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So we can't judge people by chronological age. We have to not even judge, but assess them based on track record by which they've conducted said work or activity. That's how we do it. And we have to, again, upon finding that out, utilize that. First off, clap for them, be happy for them legitimately. And then, so you know what? Let me talk to them. Let me see how they've lived their mathematics. Let me see how they've walked through life to do what they've done. Because my goal may not be theirs. See, a lot of times we think, I need to do the crypto, I need to do this. It's a lot of things that are good out here. But just because it exists doesn't mean it's for you.
True indeed.
There's a million ways to get rich. There's a million ways to hit certain fitness goals, right? I got away from looking around the gym. Like, when I was, I still play sports to this day, but playing sports a lot, you look around like you're never going to be the biggest or strongest guy in the gym. Never. But that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal is, okay, what am I here for? What am I here to do? How much closer am I today than I was yesterday? So, I'm very thankful to you speaking to that. Let's see, we have another question.
Well, I'll add to it while you're looking at the question. I'll just add to that. That's actually where the science comes in, right? Anybody who goes into a gym or works at a home or whatever it is, they can't do what everybody else does. The challenge with commercial fitness is that it pretty much says that everybody should do the same thing. If we all do this diet, do this fad, work out this way, then we all end up looking like. And the reality is it's not true. The science says we have to find what works best for us, right? And do that individually. And most people are not willing to take the time to do that.
Absolutely. And it's funny, you actually spoke to the question that I was actually going to ask. It was dealing with like weight loss programs and things that kind of talk about which your goals or what your results can be without exercise. And I think a lot of times there's something to be said about proper dietary law. Absolutely. But like we in the Nation of Islam, we eat 1 meal a day between 4 and 6. We strive to do that. And, for those of us who work out, I strive to, I can do a lot on just water or nothing just because that's how I live my life. And I think that a lot of times we forget, and you can speak to this, that a lot of our water intake that is prescribed, even though we are made of water, but a lot of it that's prescribed when you look at this current paradigm of health is linked to eating multiple times a day. So the more you eat, the more water I would say it takes to assist with that process of balance. But you'll find yourself, even, you want to drink if you're thirsty, but you'll find yourself requiring less, the less you're taking in and the less you need to flush your body. At least that's been my experience. And that's been something just because I've been able to prove. But I wanted to, what I want to do. So We are at the halfway point of the show. It's so crazy how fast time is going. I'm having such a good time.
Right.
We want to do our Black business highlight at this time.
Nice.
So today we have a STEM Files alum, Stylist Therapeutic Services from our dear sister Nafisa Muhammad, who's a certified clinical trauma specialist. Right through Solace, you'll be able to learn techniques to manage stress and anxiety, alleviate burdens from past trauma, and maintain a sense of balance in your life. Do we all need balance? Let me get a black fist if we need balance. Let me get a black fist if we need balance in the chat. Come on. Do we need balance in the chat? Let me get a black fist. Do we need to learn therapeutic techniques to manage stress and anxiety? I know I do. What a black fist at? What a black fist at, family? Alleviate burdens from past trauma. Do we all got trauma? We definitely got epigenetic based trauma. Definitely got epigenetic based trauma, but we got trauma from yesterday. Somebody talked to us bad on the job. Somebody did something to us as a child. We got some trauma, family. So for those who may be interested, Solace Therapeutic Services, right? We can start our journey for healing. Book a free 15-minute clarity call. I believe the information is in the description, but the website is app.ps.health/ps/solace. That's app.ps.health/ps/solace. Phone number 856-554-2985. You also have her Instagram as well as email. Again, I believe this information should be in the description. If not, we'll make sure to make that available to our followers as well. Solace Therapeutic Services from the mighty sister and fellow alumni of our platform, Sister Nafisa Muhammad. Let's see what we got. We got y'all know how to follow instructions. There we go. Couple black fists in the chat. Thank you, brother Anthony from the Mighty Alpha Beer Squad. That's right. Wilmington, Delaware, Muhammad Massimo 35. Asiatic soldier with the black fist. Okay, tuned in from New Jersey. That's what I'm talking about. New Jersey, stand up. That's what I'm talking about. So let's keep it moving. This was a question that was really on my heart. I know we've talked about it a lot in certain veins, but in your experience, what are some common misconceptions that people have about the human body? And how can correcting these misconceptions assist bodily healing in the overall physical fitness process?
Sure. Wow. I mean, let's just say this. At no point, at least outside of certifications, did anyone ever hand me a book to say, here's the manual to take care of your body, right? I don't know anybody who's handing those books out, right?
Right.
So most of us kind of go through life without a concrete way of dealing with our bodies or healing our bodies or kind of invoking that healing system, unless we get involved in some organization or some such thing, or
right.
you go to med school or get into science or something like that. But that's a small fraction of the population. So that being said, there's just simply ignorance about the body. People are kind of making it up as they go along, trying the best they can. But when they come across instances like, let's take weight gain, there's a gradual weight gain that tends to happen in a lot of people as they age.
Mm-hmm.
I started experiencing that once I hit my 50s, which was kind of blew my mind, even though intellectually I knew a lot of people who went through that.
Right.
But it was a challenge for me, primarily because I did not believe it could happen to me. I was like,
talk about that.
As long as I'm physically active, as long as I work out, as long as I do what I do, I'm good. So to the point about eating healthy without working out, that is entirely possible. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, most people don't do that. And so for me, I eat best when I'm working out. When I am not working out, my diet will gradually, the discipline surrounding my diet will gradually begin to erode as I allow life circumstances to encroach upon that discipline.
Yes, sir.
So the misperception is that somehow it'll stay the same. I can do now, I'm 56, soon to be 57. I can do the same thing I did at 47, 37, or 27. Absolutely not. Because I've trained for so many years and worked out, can I get in shape, quote unquote, back in shape faster than the average person? Yeah, I can, because like you said, I've been doing it since I'm 17 years of age.
Right.
But it is a misconception to believe that your body should necessarily bounce back. It does not have to if you have abused it.
Can you
So
say that again? Sorry,
yeah,
can you say that again?
no, it's like a used car. If you take this brand new car and you dent the car up, it's a little tiny dent. It's not bad. It's a little dent.
Right.
But then you get another little dent, another little dent, another little dent. You look up, and 10 years later, that car looks tore up.
Toe
There's
up.
a lot of work you
Toe
got to
up.
do
Yes,
to
sir.
get it back. Now, if
Yes,
you
sir.
take care of the car and you do what you got to do, 20 years later, it's a classic. It looks good.
Right.
So that's always been my aspiration, because I had a father who did push-ups in the house. So in part, my love for fitness came because I watched somebody do this, and he told me these things like, that ain't gonna happen to me. Now I'm looking at it going, oh, that was a misperception. These things can't happen. So I think there's a lot of things that we just assume it happens to the next person, or science got it wrong. But the truth is, there's some pretty consistent things out there that deal with taking care of your body. Most people don't have a varied enough diet, and so they're not getting all the vitamins and minerals based on activity level. So if somebody has an incredibly active lifestyle, maybe they need more or less of a given thing, or to vary it up. And then you got to qualify it based on that individual person.
That's right.
So for each person, it has to be qualified. But I think the biggest thing is most people are just ignorant of their bodies, how their bodies work. I know I eat far less protein than what the books say you should eat, and yet I'm 250 pounds solid. So, everybody's like, "Oh, you're a big dude. You're a big dude." I don't eat half the food that people think that I'm eating. I don't eat half of that. But my body responds a different way. So,
right. It's so funny that you mentioned that. So, I went to the doctor today. I'm not going to say my weight, but I was like, all right, let me get back in the gym, put a little more muscle mass on. I still have a very high metabolism. I've never been the type to, no matter how long I sit on the couch, to put on weight. It's always been hard for me to keep muscle mass on if I'm not routinely working out every day.
Sure.
Been very vascular, very slim, athletic build. So like, I could eat you out of house and home, it wouldn't look like it. Now, I'm not the smallest brother, but like you can't necessarily tell physique wise until you up on me if you're playing basketball with me or whatever, then it hit different, right? So you talked about, oh, this will never happen to me. So I wanted to kind of speak to that, and just again how our science can always jump from one discipline to the other. You could have never told me I would have struggled academically. And again, the mentality, the ego, right? Oh, this will never happen to me. I went to good schools my whole life. Sure. So my transition from high school, I went to a magnet high school in Philadelphia, George Washington Carver High School of Engineering and Science. Then I went to the University of Pennsylvania for engineering. They was talking about an orientation. Oh yeah, y'all might get C's. We looking at each other like, do you know who I am? Like C's to C's, D. You looking at people in class like, yo, this isn't real. That's your test, right? This ain't my test, your test. Right. What am I bringing up? Science is sound in the sense that you get out what you put in typically. So, and you have to adjust to new terrain.
Sure.
I can't drive the same car necessarily over city streets that I do off-road in the mountain. Sure. I have to make some adjustments.
Yep.
Right? I can't prep for a 5K the way I prep for the Broad Street Run in Philadelphia. I can't prep for a marathon the same way. It's different. You have to subject yourself to different stresses based on what your end goal. What is what is successful like for me for this, and what do I have to do on the input side of the equation to render myself successful on the opposite side.
Sure.
So again,
Sure.
we are talking about high-level mathematics, family, that can be applied to your life. STEM is literally everything, regardless of whether you consider yourself as a member of a hard science or not, right? You know, a lot of people talk about, well, why do y'all say STEM instead of STEAM? I have great respect for STEAM. I don't think I'm the type of person, I don't think it's necessary to say art because I think of art as a science.
Okay.
So I just include it. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I just include it. Like you talking about the arts, you getting the colors. This high sciences. So I don't think that if somebody was to do art, they're not doing science.
Sure.
So like if you like the term STEAM, I support it. I'm all with it.
Right.
But I just think STEM covers it as well. But thank you so much for that. We got any more questions? Let's see. This is a good question. The Black Math Academy. How do you deal with the outliers? Poor diet but excellent athlete, big muscles but physically weak, scrawny but super fast. I guess does it depend on the end goal, what they're looking at? But like this is interesting because when you talk about the outliers, there's a lot of this. So
Sure.
what would you say to this?
Yeah, no, I think you already alluded to it. So for myself, if I was working with a person's body, everything is predicated upon what's the goal? Where are we trying to go with this? So it just simply depends on how that person is presenting. So as the question is posed, it says big muscles but physically weak. Okay, fine. Is the goal to get stronger? You know, maybe the goal is something else. So just because they have big muscles but they're weak, those are all kind of relative terms, right? Because I'm not looking at it like, well, that person's weak. Weak in what capacity? Are we talking about the activities of daily living? Are we talking about competing in a bodybuilding show? Are we talking about competing in powerlifting? All these are different and have different demands. So ultimately, I choose to deal with people as they present, and then that's where they are. The goal is where they're trying to go. And my job as a human movement scientist is to bridge the gap in between, right? And then that's going to differ because every person is different. It's going to differ based on each person. Because I don't think there's a standard look or performance that everybody should have other than neutral, right?
Absolutely. What, through your research, through your expertise, what is your definition of healthy?
Take off the TH, heal. If something is healthy, heal thyself, the body heals. If it is healthy, it's self-healing. If it does not heal, it's not healthy. There's something wrong with it. It's that simple to me. So, you know, is my hair healthy? Does it grow? You know, that type of thing, right? You know, is my body physiologically healthy? Well, if I get a cut, how well do I heal? Can I form new skin and cover that? If the answer is yes, then I'm healthy. I can heal. That goes as far as psychologically as well. When you come across a challenge, do you have coping strategies? Are you able to negotiate that experience successfully? That would be a healthy person. And so that's ultimately my definition of healthy. Can you heal yourself? If you cannot, then there's got to be a reason why.
Beautiful teaching, beautiful teaching. Heal thyself. Can the body heal? That in terms of it's healthy. And what we put in, I think a lot of times too, can you speak to this? Because this is important to me, and I think our listeners or watchers would agree. A lot of times when we talk about being healthy, getting certain goals, we always think about what I'm taking in, what am I putting in? How important is it to monitor what you keep out, what you disallow from entering your temple, from the physical to the mental, when it comes to hitting fitness goals, whether it be mental, spiritual, psychological, etc.?
I think it's equally important. I mean, you know, when we think of ingesting, right? So we're thinking food and that type of thing, but there's far more to ingesting, like ideas. You can
Right.
ingest an idea. One of the things that I always found interesting was if you look at the intestines and how they're coiled, and you look at the brain and how it's coiled, they serve a similar function, which is to process. So my intestines process foods, but my brain processes ideas. And so I'm ingesting these ideas. And likewise, there are things that I do not want to consume because they are detrimental to me, not just from a physical standpoint, but intellectually. Exposing myself, like for example, me personally, I don't watch slasher films or these horror films or some of this. Just that is crazy. That's just
Okay.
me. Other people might like it, but
Yes,
it's
sir.
not my thing. One of the reasons why I don't indulge is because for me, my spirit says that is unhealthy for me. It's destructive. Why would I subject myself to that to even deal with that trauma that people are experiencing on screen? I don't want to absorb that into my being. So I choose not to indulge in that. And so there's a
Gotcha.
lot of, I think it's what discipline is all about, right? Doing what you need to do when you don't want to do it.
Come on, do what you need to do when you don't want to do it. And I think that discipline, being a disciple of what, of who, you know, a lot of times, and we all struggle with this. I love when people talk about they're not religious, but they want to make a dollar. They're not religious. They have certain fitness goals.
Mm.
All religion mean well, religion means it's religion, getting back to God. So your religion as it pertains to your money making, what are you trying to get back to again and again and again? What do you do religiously? See, well,
Right.
I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Well, okay, I see a lot of religious activity in your life as it pertains to food, money, drugs, or
Sure.
healthy things.
Sure.
I think that a lot of times we get so, I guess, literal, and we don't understand words well. It's a pet peeve of mine. One
Okay.
in my household, and good, bad, or indifferent, I think it was very good. I hung on to what you said. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I try to be very, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Purposeful about what I say
Okay.
to you,
All right.
because
Sure.
I intend for you to understand it the way I said it. Now, if you misunderstand, that's fine. I think
Right.
we're too loose with our words sometimes,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Certainly.
Depending on who. Thank you, like deliberate. Thank you, sir. See, it's always good to have people, brothers, and people in the chat. They got your best interests at heart. You know what I'm saying? Y'all all saw me up here struggling. Come on now. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Deliberate, yes. So, depending on who you ask, people say there's a reason why I call it spelling.
Yeah.
You know, words have power. So I was always taught, say what you mean what you say.
Yep.
Right. So, oh man, put 8:53. Okay, let's get into another breakout. We have 10 minutes left. I want to do our final call newspaper highlight, and then we'll get into our last few minutes. This has been awesome.
Okay.
Let's see. Here we go. All right.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call Digital Edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
Sir, and this week's latest issue, there we go. Again, for those who don't know, if you haven't heard, if you don't know, now you know. As a proud member of the Nation of Islam, this is the Final Call newspaper, our flagship news source, news you can use. For the latest issue, digitally, you can go to finalcalldigital.com. Make sure to follow at Final Call Newspaper. That's at Final Call Newspaper on all platforms. When all else fails. This past Sunday, or 2 Sundays ago, I believe at this point, our dear and beloved brother, student minister, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, delivered a very, very powerful message talking about the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. There are excerpts in this paper for that. Go back to NOI.org. watch that, study that. We must depend on Allah and ourselves. Whatever you call the Most High, or whatever you call the Supreme Being, what does that mean to you? The Centerfold article by the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan. If you desire to have the premier, I said it, the premier Black-owned news source in the world in your hands physically, if you live in the Philadelphia area, you can tap in with myself via one of my customers, or you can definitely tap in with our dear brother Tariq if you're in the Richmond, Virginia area, the Final Call newspaper family. Make sure to get yours weekly, whether digitally, physically, or both. Final Call newspaper, a message dedicated to the resurrection of Black men and women of America and the world. So I'm going to do something that we do off and on that I really like, is I'm going to flip the script a bit. I like to have our interviewees become interviewers for a few minutes. So at this time, if you have any questions for me about us, what we do, on anything, it would be about this topic or something different, you have the floor. You may ask what you like, and hopefully I can give you a substantive answer.
Okay, so let's start with some basics then. You guys have this platform. You're getting out there. People are listening. You have people's ears. What made you want to do it, and why do you continue to do it?
Beautiful question. So, so this is the STEM Files is our media arm for our growing science and technology company, Original Man Scientific, which is a research and development company designed to deliver the advantages of research and development to our communities. And we're growing in that capacity. And we utilize this arm to show, first and foremost, that not only are we Black in STEM, but Black is STEM, always has been, always will be. And it formulates the very fabric of our reality. We do this to showcase to those around us, not only is science applied to your life, but whatever it is that you want to do in life. There are those who look like you, who are overcoming odds. They've had experiences that are similar to yours. And these are regular people giving up themselves to you that you can connect with. So we want people to network. We want people to follow up. We want people to be inspired. And we want people to be educated. There's a lot of misinformation on social media, on the internet. And we're not saying we have all the answers, but we do the best to bring those who have experiences, credentials, etc., to give you real life experience and credible information, whether we're talking about our respective fields or what have you, so that you, if you're interested, whether you're a young person, older person, professional, enthusiast, what have you, and you want to go into a specific field of endeavor, the STEM Files has provided you a nice, strong foundation that you can jump off from and be inspired. So we want to inspire the community. We want to connect the Black community, because I heard at one point this sister said something. I think she's the CEO of the blackball.com. She said, our people are not so much disunited, they're disconnected. So we can connect the dots a little bit.
Right.
We can let you know that you have someone you can connect with that's interested in what you're interested in, that has experience in what you're experiencing, and we can provide that bridge. Why not?
Yeah.
Right. And then move things forward one day at a time. So that's why we continue to do what we do.
No, it's beautiful. I'd say, and I commend you guys for doing what you do. Right now, I think we live in this world where there are so many voices that are competing for space, but a lot of them are not saying anything substantive. And so to have a platform that celebrates excellence, particularly within our culture, is awesome to see. So, see two young Black men, young to me, doing their thing and being out there and speaking and showing this image to the world is invaluable. So I thank you guys for taking the time to continue this platform.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I really appreciate that. We love when people appreciate not just that we're doing this, but they gain something from what we're doing, because that's why we do it. Yeah. If it stops being effective, we would do something else. So, yes, sir. Anything else?
If you weren't doing science, what would you be doing?
So this is how I don't think there's a way to really not do science, because of my understanding of what science is.
Okay.
So if I wasn't doing a hard science, I would still be applying a scientific methodology or thought process to whatever I was doing. But
Yes.
so I guess math tutoring counts as science. I love math tutoring. Okay. So all my life, I haven't done it nearly to the degree I used to do it, but I used to dance competitively and I'm trained. So I've done ballroom, I've done different urban styles, breakdancing and stuff. So
Right.
one of the things I've always wanted to do is like Chris Brown is one of my like favorite guys as an artist.
Right.
Like I've always wanted to like dance background like Chris Brown video. So I might pursue like dancing professionally. No, for real.
Right.
Like it's always been something that's brought me ease of the mind. I've always liked battling. I always battled growing up. It's just something that was a part of the culture that I was brought up in.
Right.
Not only competing and doing showcases, but around the way, guys like, look, he tough. Like, okay, all right, so like we're gonna see what's up. So I would look into pursuing that if I was not in the sciences.
Nice. So I want to share something because you sparked something. You mentioned breakdancing. So I started b-boying, and I'm being very clear when I say this. I started b-boying, not just breakdancing, but b-boying in 1983. However, before that, I was a popper and all that stuff for many years. I started street dance in 1973. So when I was in elementary school. So for me, when we talk about science, that's really an expression of my b-boyism. And so what I understand hip hop to be, which is what it was back in the 70s and 80s when I was doing my thing, that's what I align closely with. So when I actually got into hard sciences and I studied that, it's important to know that, and I didn't think to say this prior until we started talking just now, that I went into hard science with the understanding of a b-boy. And as a b-boy, looking at how can I use this element to do my thing, to show and prove. And so when I came into the hard sciences, that's what I was doing. And so I naturally began to look at scientific principles as metaphors. And I began to see something different that the people around me, they weren't seeing because they didn't come from the culture. And that's a significant difference.
Woo, you never thought you'd have two dancers on the line kicking that, because but the thing is so crazy because there's so much science, movement in dance, expression. When you get into talking about, so I don't listen to music like a regular person.
Sure.
I listen to music as a dancer. So I talk about terms like texture, you know what I'm saying? The feel of the song, like how you can basically take movement and make people see the music, see the beat, see the underbelly, see the backbeats and everything. Because I choreographed too. So that was something that I did. So that's beautiful. And my mother is a dancer by training as well. She I'm forgetting the name. She's gonna kill me. Mom, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you go to Philadelphia growing up? Did you go to Danko? If you didn't, and it was something else, let me know. My mother's trained in ballet, jazz. She also trained me in ballroom as well. So you one more question if you have it. One more question, then we'll land the plane.
Nothing comes to mind immediately.
Yes, he said yes. I got it right. Philadelphia. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
no,
sir.
So
okay.
I'm good. Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate your questions, family. This has been another edition of the STEM Files. We appreciate all the support, all the likes, comments, shares. Share this specific episode with your friends, family, loved ones, colleagues. All of us need to get into shape, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, socially. Right? What does it mean to get into shape? Well, what shape are you trying to take? All right. If we understand that, then we can get into that shape by being deliberate. Come on, Black Math Academy, about the methodology we employ to go from point A to point B. Our next guest, cannot forget that, we have our dear brother and epidemiologist, Brother Robert Muhammad, who will be talking to us about monkey pox. Monkey pox, hot thing in the news right now. We know that the government has put out a public health emergency related to it to drive resources to that. You know, there's been a number of different demographics that have contracted. This is very important. You know, we want to be informed. We want to have the proper information on how to respond if need be. And hopefully you will tune in next week for that information as we try to do a bit of a deep dive into that topic. Well, family, again, it's been an honor, a pleasure. We do this for the culture. We do this because we love to connect people and ideas. Again, I'm your brilliant engineer, typically joined by Tariq Cardiac. We love you. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much, Mr. Earnest, for your time. I feel like we got to do a part 3. We'll hook it up. We'll get it together. If you'll have us, we'll have you. This is your platform. And anytime you reach out, hey, I got something I want to talk about. We set it up.
Beautiful, beautiful.
We like this to be a platform for our alumni to be able to showcase things on their mind as well, because this is a relationship now. This is a marriage at this point. So at any time, you know, we come up with something. Hey, what about this? What do you think about this? Or if you think about something, we'd love to have.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, actually, I have a number of things I'm involved in. I have a nonprofit organization that I run that does work in Ghana, and so, but some people don't know is I'm actually I found my African relatives through DNA and reconnected with those family members, and have gone to physically visit them and hang out, and have actually taken title in Ghana. So I actually have a title in parts of Ghana, that sort of thing. So I continue to do that work. So always willing to share that information to talk about that, especially from the DNA side, because now it used to be a time where we took on X as a last name because it was unknown. But now I can literally tell you the clans that my families are associated with in Ghana and Nigeria.
Look at the little drop of the seed of the teachings. Come on now. See, as we gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and we've talked about Nation of Islam, you know, taking an African name, taking an original name. You know, we just want to wear the names of our people, right? Beautiful, beautiful. Well, family, I know I've been well fed. I pray you've been well fed. Again, this has been another edition of STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent and Black culture, your Black is STEM podcast. Tune in next week. Until next time, family. Peace.
Peace.
You believe in these false prophets, I say I bet he lying. No football, New York City Giants. Girl dad, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. When we teaching our babies, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teaching our women, we teach them heavy science. Heavy science. Heavy science. When we teach men, we teach them heavy